Hey, this is Kieran, Coach's Corner Chats, and on the episode today, I have Nick Stravropoulos. Nick, where are you at, and what are you up to?
Yeah, I just finished my third season as head coach at Ferndale High School, fifth overall. Next year, I'm undecided. I did leave Ferndale. We did move further away from Ferndale, so we moved to Rochester Hills. So next move is to be determined. In January, we'll announce that. But was at Ferndale just up until a couple weeks ago as we lost in the playoffs. So.
And where is Ferndale? Where are you located?
I'm in Rochester Hills. I used to live in Berkeley, which was right next to Ferndale, literally minutes away. And then recently, I would say 5 months ago, I just moved to Rochester Hills, which is probably about 40 minutes to 50 minutes away to Ferndale.
And so then we're talking Michigan, because I see
Yes.
the Lions,
Yep.
Detroit Lions stuff on.
Yeah. Like this is the spit up hoodie from my kids. I got 2 under 2, so this is the Fortnite, but doing the dishes, rocking the baby, putting the toddler to bed. This is obviously, it's a Lions hoodie, so you don't care if it gets destroyed, right?
Yeah, and hopefully they can get a dub at some point.
Right. Either way, just get that first draft pick, right? That's all that matters.
That's where you can start building stuff. What was so you said 3 years at the head coaching position. What was some of the first things that when you took over as the head guy, what was some of the things that you tried to implement within the program?
So when I first started, one of the biggest things that I noticed was they always practiced. They always had JV and varsity practice together. And as you know, there's such a skill discrepancy between those. Mm-hmm. You can have an all-star freshman or, it's really men versus boys sometimes, right? Regardless of size too. And so as head coach, that was one of the things that I changed immediately, that, hey, listen, we're not doing this anymore. Varsity needs to practice with varsity, JV is going to practice with JV. And the second thing, I'm guessing that would be the second question, was we did have cuts on varsity for the first time, just because, they kind of ran it as a rec program, and we really wanted to get these kids competing, right? So we just, we implemented those two things along with a preseason workout off-season guide that the kids all did as well.
How were parents and players receptive to the kind of the change of mindset of like, hey, it's been fun, it's kind of been social, we're now going to go a little more competitive with this?
I think that because they knew me as an assistant coach, they knew that I wanted the kids to win, right? You could see, I'm sure you've been a coach, losing isn't fun, right? Especially when you lose because of basics or just things that need to be changed or are not prepping right for your game against a better opponent, right? Because they knew me in advance and knew that I was passionate about this, and obviously we don't coach for money over here in high school sports and athletics. They knew that, hey, like, this guy's going to come in who's not a teacher. He's not coming here asking for barely, he's not asking the boosters for money to buy stuff. Like, he's coming here because he wants to win, right? He wants these kids to understand that, they can win here. And that was the message, is what I start with, is, hey, it doesn't matter how big our school is. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, we're going to work all year for a common goal to compete. And, they all bought in. So I'm very lucky that they did.
So have you seen the progression over your 3 years from where you started to now?
Yeah. So when I first started as an assistant, I think they won like 3 games, 4 games the second year. And then immediately the third year we won 12. So my first year as head coach, we won 12. And, I can't take all the credit. The kids worked hard. I mean, it was, there's a couple of people, like you said, who would I say thanks to? Lewis Robinson at Aquinas helped me. Luke Ruff at Aquinas helped me. Ian Jones at Clarkston High School. A bunch of guys who have been around the block at very high levels in soccer. I looked at them as mentors that gave me great ideas to form an off-season guide. And, it was a big change, right? Like, kids all bought in, and this as a coach too. When you inspire kids that, hey guys, like, this isn't cool. Like, we can win games. This is why we didn't win, and we can do better. You have that special moment where you bond with them because they start to believe, and this too as a coach, where when you're in a game against a better opponent, if your team believes it, and then that belief in the other team is starting to to dwindle, like you got a real chance. And I think that has been, you know, the motto for our whole season every year is, guys, like, you got to believe, you got to work hard and believe. And yeah, I mean, it was an instant change of, you know, we won 3 to 4 games, we lose first round in playoffs every year, to, you know, winning a division, or, well, we tied for the division last year. We came in second this year to a very good Bloomfield Hills team. And mind you, there's only 500 and something kids in my school, right? Compared to Bloomfield Hills, who has thousands,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. So you're on the small end when it comes to high school soccer.
Yeah, but it's kind of misleading because we merge with a magnet school that I don't get any players from. So unfortunately, it keeps me in Division II. It looks like I have 1,100 kids in my program, but like I said, unfortunately, we have 565 kids. And, you know, it's like I told you before, I've only had 13 to 14 on average on varsity because of size. And I think if Ferndale did drop down to Division III, I think they would we'd have much more luck when it comes to playoffs, you know, be playing these bigger private schools and schools around us. But yeah, very small school. And like I said, unfortunately, we are paired with a magnet school that makes us look a lot larger than we are.
You mentioned a couple of the mentors. How did you come in to be connected with Aquinas College and the coaches there?
Yeah, crazy story. So one of my first years, I coached the girls as well, and we won their first title. This was in 2019, and I had 3 really special girls that played on my team. I had and at the NAIA level, I knew all 3 could play there. I just didn't know, you know, what they wanted to do, right? Like, I'm sure as a coach, you know, these kids were just trying to guide them as best I can. So, you know, I reached out to Lewis on a whim because we had some mutual friends, and I go, "Hey, Lou, you know, you don't know me. I'd love to meet you. I have 3 special players for you that are academically perfect to fit what you want. You know, I think they'd be a great fit for your school." And as soon as that happened, like, we just clicked. Same thing with Luke, who's at Aquinas now. Joey Tinian at Rochester, same great guy. We went to the same high school. You know, I think it's just being open to talking to people. I think that's same thing how we met, right? Like, I reached out to you, and I guess I'm an extrovert, right? I just love to talk to people, especially about things that I love. And you know, we created that Aquinas pipeline right away, just because of you know, their willingness to entertain a small school, because they're small themselves, and you know, they were interested in the kids we were putting through our program.
Is Aquinas, I'm assuming, like the nearby college option?
No. Actually, it's about 2 hours away. It's in Grand Rapids. Yeah. So like I said, I mean, I did my homework, right? So I knew my kids weren't D1 material, right? I knew I had one girl actually in 2019. And she just wanted to become, she just wanted to be a student, unfortunately, right? Like, I'm happy where she is. And now she's like, "Coach, like, I should have played soccer." I mean, you know how it is, right? And I knew like D2 NAIA is where the other girls would fit in. And so I reached out to all the coaches, and, you know, some were warm, some were cold, you know, everywhere, right? Anywhere in the Midwest, or even St. Petersburg, Florida, because, you know, one of them wanted to be a marine biologist, and they have a couple of good schools down there. I can't remember the school now, but, you know, I utilized LinkedIn, I utilized Google. I just, you know, became friends with as many people as I could to help these kids that, you know, go to a small school who don't have that much help.
I love the fact that you, number one, were realistic with the girls as to, like, look, I know everybody wants to go D1, that there's that kind of pride ego type thing, but let's be realistic. What do you want to do? And I love the idea that when the one girl was like, "No, I love playing soccer, but I think I just want to go be a student," you were like, "Go for it. Just keep rocking and rolling." And it shows that you know your players, in terms of the ones that, like, well, I don't want to send you to a college that doesn't offer anything that deals with marine biology or whatever topic thing that they want to focus on. So I think that speaks volumes to you as to that idea, like you said earlier, about, I'm not only preparing you to be great at soccer, but I'm preparing you to be great at life.
Right. Yeah. And to build off that too, you know, I'm very lucky that I worked at Cisco for a very long time. I work at Aptiv now, which is it's a global tier 1 automotive company. You know, we write letters of recommendation for all these kids, regardless of they want to be, if they want to be an astronaut, if they want to be a movie creator. Like we just wrote one for one of my girls on my teams wants to direct movies, but she wants to go to Loyola, and we wrote her a letter of recommendation. I looked at all my contacts on LinkedIn to see if they knew anyone in admissions to help her, and it's a family, right? And we run it like that because these kids deserve it, right? So before the season, all my new freshmen, we have them fill out like a college profile, right? Regardless if they're good enough to play in college, it's more so just to learn about them, so we know Sydney wants to be an engineer, or Jason wants to go into the military, or Frank wants to go to a great business school. So then when these kids ask these questions, when they're becoming juniors and seniors, upperclassmen, we can help them, in their, guide them to where they need to be, right? And we're very lucky that we have people that bought into that, because we've been able to place kids in internships, and do really cool stuff with that, because we have those profiles and in such a close relationship with our players.
The neat thing too is just hearing the kind of the stories and descriptions as the kids are going all over.
Right. Yeah.
It's such a cool variety. And I think the neat thing is to the idea of giving everyone an opportunity. When you come into the program as a freshman, I'm giving every single one of you this paper. I'm going to learn about you. And then as we keep to grow, some of you will have the opportunity to go and be a soccer player. Some of you will be able to go to the college level. What are some of the things? So now, since you've been on both sides, gender wise, what are some of the differences that you've noticed in how you had to deal with like your boys program versus the girls program?
Right. This is actually something funny. So, I was finishing another degree in the University of Wayne State University, when I was coaching the girls, and I was doing a statistics. It doesn't matter. I was doing a statistics, essentially a case study, and I did boys versus girls, and and this is funny because I was telling them I'm using their data for my paper, and they were laughing. But essentially, one of the biggest things I noticed is how they pick teams. Boys pick by skill level, and I noticed my girls picked on relationships. So it didn't matter how good they were. And mind you, so I did this for weeks. I marked if it was the same or not, right? Like did when we made captains to break, whether it was 3v3, I like to do a 5v5 drill with two neutrals. Like when they're picking the teams, every single time for me, the girls picked on relationship versus skill. And the boys always picked on skill, no matter what. And I'm talking like we had, I data from every day, right? So it was a 90-day thing for the girls, 90-day thing for the boys. And it was just hilarious to see the difference between the two, because, I never, if you would have asked me that, I would have never thought that would happen in such a black and white literal sense, right? Because I'm pretty gray. So, and it could be just because Ferndale's Ferndale, right? The soccer teams haven't been great. So these kids have very strong relationships with each other, right? So, that I wrote that in my paper too, about how, hey, listen, statistically and historically, these soccer teams aren't very good. So they're probably picking because they love their friends and this is a small area. But, it was competitive, right? And with the boys, it was always about getting the strongest team. Another difference is tactics. With my boys, I could make them homework and be like, we're going to run. If you guys can't answer 3 like simple questions about our opponent next week, like probably like a big game, whether it's a division game or whatever, like we'll do a VO breakdown or like a huddle breakdown, and I'll give them 5 easy things to remember. Like they just could not function if it wasn't done all together, right? Where you held them accountable. And it's just, they're teenage boys, right? Like, what it is, what it's like. The girls, I could give them a stack of 20 papers, right? Formation guide, why we press, what are the traps, a false 9, like a conversion into a false 9 on a counterattack. They absorbed it like a sponge. My boys, and it's maybe because my boys were more athletically gifted compared to the girls, but the girls absorbed the tactics. The boys just, like I said, it was, they rather just go on the field and do a physical model instead of reading. So
I think it's great insight what you just shared, because everything you were saying, because I've coached both sides, gender wise, and I agree completely. The girls are very much like people pleasers. So when you say, hey, this is how we're going to bet out of the back, or this is how we're going to press, and they do it, they just want to hear that they did it correctly. The boys, you can kind of tell sometimes, and they're like, dude, we got this. We'll just go out there and crush them. And then, like, no, you have to have a plan. You just can't go running around
Right,
doing
right.
your thing. So I completely agree with those types of things that you brought up. I love the fact that you did a study. That's really, really cool, because it starts to kind of maybe look for little intricacies like you noticed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was funny because even my professor at the time was just laughing. She was like, this was the easiest assignment I think I gave someone. She was laughing. And I told her, I mean, you saw before I wrote it, you know, what my hypothesis was. Like, I didn't think this was going to happen statistics wise. And she was just laughing. She was like, I should have definitely, she was like, I'm never going to let this happen again. I'm going to make this a harder assignment. And yeah, it was fun. And like I said, you know, they stuck to their guns every single time. We even did a charity, not like a charity thing. We did with the girls, we even did like this fun like freeze frisbee tag or something. I can't remember what it was, but same thing. They picked on relationships. And I'm like, you guys can get competitive. Like, I even try to interject to skew the data, and they nope, you know, Tara's my friend, and you know, Sydney's my friend. I'm like, you guys are, you know, true to the data. I couldn't get you to be an outlier. So
It's really, really interesting. What got you into coaching? Like, why is Nick passionate and enjoy working with these youngsters? You said you're not a teacher, so maybe not in the educational type thing, but what was kind of maybe the spark that got you into this?
right. So I started my tenure at soccer playing for you know, a couple teams as a kid. You know, the biggest thing is I played at Eisenhower. Josh Van Houten is another one of my I don't know if you've met Josh, but Josh Van Houten's father is, I believe he's in the Hall of Fame in Michigan for soccer. And then, you know, he was my coach, and when I was younger, he inspired me to play, right? Like we were part of a massive school that went to back-to-back state titles. We lost both, but you know, he was inspirational for me. And, you know, trying to play in college, and unfortunately due to injury, you know, I tried to walk on. I had, you know, very, very bad knee injury the summer before my freshman year. So I was just trying to walk on. But the inspiration came from my wife currently at my age, right? So I really didn't want to coach. You know, I had this negative context on football because I was so sad due to injury that, you know, I couldn't keep playing. And after so many surgeries, now I can play at a pretty high level, but not, you know, what I would be at mid 30s without, you know, a new knee. So it was my wife. So a great story is that 5 years ago, a little bit more than 5 years ago now, my wife is a teacher, as I shared with you earlier. She gets like those consortium emails about openings, right? I'm sure you get the same thing all the time when there's a job opening, whether it's soccer related or not. It's probably like, you know, we need an art teacher or we need this. So she saw one for a soccer coach, and it was right by our house, right? So she kind of set me up on a blind date. She goes, "Hey, do you want to go watch a soccer game?" And I'm like, "Not really. It's raining, you know." And we just moved here, and she wasn't my wife at the time either. We were just dating, and she's like, "No, you need to show up at the school. Like, there's gonna be a fun game. You need to meet this guy Matt." And I'm like, "Okay, like I'll go. I'm gonna appease you." Pouring rain. I am the only one there. It is like monsooning. I'm sitting there in like my Adidas hoodie, and I'm like, why am I here? Like, this is, and my wife's like, just talk to Matt. Like, no matter what, I'm texting her, I'm telling her, hey, you know, why am I here? Why am I here? She goes, no, just wait. So Ferndale ends up beating, like, this is one of the worst games I've ever seen. And I'm going to laugh because if some of my past players hear me say this, they're going to be like, we weren't that bad, coach. I promise. No, like, it was, like, I remember a ball went in off a corner kick and it just hung in the air, and the goalie dropped it in his net. And then it was one of the worst soccer games I've ever witnessed, and they won. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like, Ferndale's not that bad. And so the coach comes over to me. He's like, hey, you're here for the interview, right? And I go, what? And, you know, my wife set me up. Like, she did all the, you know, correspondence, and she's like, CCing me on these emails. And so I really had no idea what I was walking into. And he's like, yeah, we need an assistant and assistant varsity coach and a JV coach. And, you know, you can't say no. You're sitting there in the rain, and I'm like, okay, like I'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk about this. And so I went home, and my wife's like, yeah, aren't you happy? I'm like, yeah, you kind of right, and you kind of know me, and and that's probably why I'm married to her and love her dearly, right? So yeah, very just by chance. And I did work at that time with a couple other soccer teams. Um, just randomly, like, would run sessions for my buddies who have travel teams. And just like I said, just kind of figuring out my life at that point. And my wife knew that I loved to play, and I was helping my buddies run their sessions and game plan and break down film. So she set me up on that blind date interview, and now we're here 5 years later. So
That is the wildest, because usually it's the wife that's like pulling, like, when are you going to be home? Or,
right, that's
doing
what it's
this.
like now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny how, but I'm sure there's part you're like, hey, remember the whole rainy game you sent me to? So we kind of set this whole thing, the domino effect.
right. And that's actually, so I have 2 under 2. So this past season was extremely hard for us because I had a newborn, I had a toddler who was under 2. We just moved to this new house. It was far away, and I'm very thankful for my wife, because she knows, what that community means to us and what we mean to them. So she was very selfless. We had a lot of family. I'm Greek from my last name. I'm sure you figured out. We had a lot of family come help, and she made it work. And she's an angel. And thanks doesn't do a proper thank you for her, because she is amazing. And it was a hard choice to leave, obviously, but as my next moves are revealed, you'll see that, hey, we got to be closer to home as my kids, as right? Like, you want to be close to home and be part and present for your family.
I think the cool thing about it is not is everyone always sees the coach, and I've seen even little visuals where it's like an iceberg. You see the tip, you see the coach at games, but you don't get to see all the little behind the scenes things. And to hear this story is so cool, to see that it wasn't me who went and chased the dream of coaching. It was my wife who believed in me, knew that I had this kind of, this spark inside that hadn't, kind of the fire that kind of dimmed a little bit. And she was like, all right, I'm going to make this happen. And even now, when with the 2 under 2 and all that, she was able to kind of still support you and still take care of family and all those types of things. And you mentioned family earlier, and I think it's even within your players and all the things that you did for them. So it's almost as if what she's done for you, now you're supporting some of the players and all those types of things. It's like it goes full circle.
Right. Yeah. And Ferndale isn't, like I was trying to say earlier, it's not one of the richest areas. We did have struggles with the program when it came to stuff like that, because these kids, they needed lunch in the summer. They needed financial help. Right. So, my wife said, hey, listen, we're going to give it one more whirl. And then after this, like, obviously we move. So, I get to hire my replacement and make sure the program stays in good hands.
Do you now look possibly to coach somewhere there close, or are you going to say, look, I'm going to focus on my family, and the next time I coach will be my little ones?
Honestly, we have a couple of offers nearby, and I think it's just more so due to, I think, rules here in Michigan, because a lot of coaches haven't finished kind of their end of the year.
Got it.
We just had playoffs. I think we just finished about 4 weeks ago. So a lot of coaches haven't done like that postseason brief where they've took down the nets, put all the stuff away. My decision will probably come in January, and I am going to probably be staying closer. And my wife, this is something that's actually pretty crazy. So I think I don't know how schools work. I honestly have no idea, right? Like, you would know because you're a teacher, but where I've been lately is completely different for where I've been. So it's apples and oranges to what I'm used to. So when, these other schools that I live in, are the districts that I live in, they know my kids, they know my wife because she teaches in a nearby district. Right. And, I think that we're just going to make it work. And my wife, I was going to take a break. And like you said, she's like, no, 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 this is part of who you are. Your parents live down the street. Let's make this work. And just having the more resources at these bigger schools that I live by now is going to help drastically when it comes to making it work with my family.
She does sound like a saint. I love the fact that like, look, I'll take some time. We'll spend, no, off you. I need you go. And I think that is like, it's healthy because I'm sure there's things that she's into that hopefully she gets away and gets to do, and vice versa. Because you have to take care of yourself to, let stresses out or have a passion or a hobby, type of thing. The high school coaches you mentioned as well that you kind of talked to and what have you, what was the experience, kind of in the league and being new to the whole league and the experience of kind of meeting the new coaches and what have you?
Right. Yeah. So there's a guy named Wes. Wes coaches at Pontiac, big rival of our schools. Like every game we play with him is close. Right. And we shared the title with him last year. Because he beat us at his home field this year, we lost the title overall. We're not very close when it comes to space. I mean, it's pretty far away. It's about 30 minutes away from Ferndale, but he was like the first guy to come to me in the league and said, hey, welcome. I don't think but I've been coaching here for this. I coach the girls, and I met him same way. Hey, I coach the girls. Nice to see you. And he took me under his wing and explained to me like, we play in something called the OAA. He explained, hey, they're kind of biased. We're in the lowest division here. We're in smaller schools, poorer schools, and this is how this is what it is. This is how we do things. And going all the way up to the highest league, right? So Ian Jones is in the OAA Red, and his team was ranked nationally this year. And there was a bunch of teams in our OAA Red that was ranked nationally. I think we had 3 that were top 50 in the United States at one point. And Ian, on a whim, one of my interns at an old job was his JV coach, and he reached out to me. He goes, hey, Kevin, blah blah. So just random communication from these people where, usually the ADs make these schedules. It's super weird. I wanted to make my own schedule immediately. Right. And so it bridged all these gaps with people who had no idea, like Ferndale soccer, had someone that was that involved. Right. Cause like I was reaching out to ADs, coaches, and I'm sure my administration, which I'm sure, they probably hated me because all I wanted to do is change things. And they've been doing something forever the same way where they just play this many games. And I even started a tournament, which then became a Bob Floros Memorial Tournament due to a student who died of COVID. He was 47, he was in the 80s and 90s. He went to school there, but, I shook it all up, because these kids deserved it. And the coaches that I really became friends with were the ones that, hey, I would reach out to. And we'd create this bond because they know what it's like, right? They know that, I'm sure, just like we're talking now, it's a grind. I mean, you're there. It's an infatuation. It's incestuous. We do it because we love it, right? It's like we're sick about it. And, when you meet someone who isn't there just collecting a paycheck, who loves it because they love the kids, they love the sport, they love the camaraderie, they love everything about it. You want to go have a beer with them and talk tactics. You want to share, like, what do you think about this? And so those people that I mentioned were those people that, at 10 o'clock at night after a big loss, we're going down to the pub and we're waiting for the VO to upload so we can watch the video. Or, hey, we'll play them too every year and we'll talk tactics. Hey, did this work? Did this not work? What do you think? And, we create close bonds where you play these really good teams and these coaches rely on you, and you rely on them to give you honest opinion, right? And how you can get better.
That's so refreshing because I think sometimes, which is one of the things that kind of brought me to the podcast, was I think coaches want to help other coaches. We want to, I think we all know that we're constantly learning and there's no way we're going to know everything. You can read all the books you want, go to clinics, do your licensing courses, whatever, but there's something about being in the trenches with other people who are going through, like you said, the grind, and being able to pick, because I'm sure there's conversations where you're like, I think this is probably only happening at Ferndale. And then you talk to the guy at Pontiac or one of those that's in the red division, who's a national power, and you're like, wait a minute, you're having the same issues I am. So it's kind of refreshing. And I love the fact that even though you're in the same league and there's all this prowess to have banners and league titles and all that stuff, you're like, no, I help them because we're trying to help each other, hopefully in the tournament, because it makes our league look better when we're successful in the tournament. So if I am doing something and they say, whoa, that was pretty successful, what were you doing? So cool to have that kind of feedback and give and take.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like people don't realize, so we had a new team in the league this year. We had a team, like I said, that was almost 3 times the size of our school. They're called Bloomfield Hills. They're a little bit down the street from Ferndale. And same thing, I met Doogie, and, it's amazing because they know we have common opponents, and until you play them on that day, they'll talk shop with you, right? And same thing with Wes. I've been talking to Wes for 5 years about tactics, where we play so many common enemies. We call them common enemies, but common teams where he'll be, because he has the same issues I have. Is he comes from a smaller school. He has kids that need to go to work and help provide for their families, and there's days that he has 12, days that he has 15, days that he has 13. So he'll ask me those questions like, oh, you beat him, or hey, it was a close game. Like, do you have tape? Tell me your notes. Like, what do you think? And it goes all the way to the top, right? Where guys like Ian Jones, who I really relied on, who's he runs one of the Liverpool travel teams here in Michigan, one of their little areas, one of the largest areas, sorry, not little, but he taught me a lot of things as well, right? Because we're always trying to absorb this information on, well, I can go read what a false 9 is, but is it going to work with these kids who aren't going to listen to me, right? Like this. And, it's just great. We have a great community, and I'm proud to be part of it.
Is when you first started, because I'm going to compare with mine. When I first started, I just finished year 2. I went in with like, oh, I got my tactics, my formation. And within the first week, I was like, oh, that stuff's out the window. That's not what's important in this mix. I know I've heard that with you, but was that something that you've kind of realized, even talking with these coaches? I guess maybe what I'm trying to go with is, how much does it tactics, and how much do you kind of find out about how to build those relationships?
Right. So for me, it's more so because I was an assistant 2 years prior. I knew what Ferndale needed, right? I think, I've played a very similar formation the last 3 years, and I adjust my tactics per team. And I know a lot of coaches don't do that, right? I know a lot of coaches want to, whether it's possess the ball, they want to counter, they want to sit in a low block no matter what and counter, right? Or a medium block. Because of how unique my team is consistently with how small it is, we aren't good enough at something unless it's just straight counter, low block. We don't possess enough talent to sit there and hold the ball, right? And that's, a lot of teams can't do that, right? I would say 80% of teams in the United States at the high school varsity level aren't good enough to hold the ball and do something with it, right? We'll play teams that obviously do too many rondos, because all they do is hold the ball, but they have no idea what to do with it as soon as they get it past midfield, right? So it cycles, and we'll tie them, and it's great. But tactically, I knew what I wanted to do for 2 years, but because I wasn't the head coach, I couldn't do it until that 3rd year, right? So after watching them play all those amazing games, whether it was in the rain or not, watching them lose, coming from a large school like I did in high school, and playing, in semi-pro games, I never felt what it was like to get mercied until I became a coach. So that was shocking to me to watch a team get mercied, and to watch these kids just hang their heads. And I told them, hey, this shouldn't happen. We're going to work hard. And so for 2 years, like I said, I knew what kids were coming up. I knew what kids we would have. And all summer, like I said, it was it was infectious, sorry. And, we had everything ready. We did tinker with it, right? When someone gets hurt, or, we will sit in a low block when we play a really, really good team, because we don't have the physical or technical awareness to beat those teams. But I mean, it's what we do isn't special, and it doesn't change. We keep it simple. But when we do play, like I said, those OAA red teams, we always sit deep, we'll show them different looks. Like we'll sit in the back five, or then sometimes show them a midfield five, and then they get confused because they're like, well, where did the third center back go? And they don't know how to break it. And yeah, so no, I mean, honestly, I think if I had a deeper team, I think I would probably do what you did, right? Throw everything out the window and figure out what works best for my kids. But because I have 13 of them,
Yeah.
and I know them so well, they're really, when we play these big games, we do have to sit back in a low block because we're going to get killed if we don't, right?
And again, that goes back to something I brought up earlier about just knowing your players. Like, I'm not going to
Right.
I want to put you in a spot where you can be successful, because clearly whatever we were doing in the previous, years, you guys were getting pummeled. So let's do something different. We're going to be solid. We're all going to be on the same page, and then hopefully get some results from it. The other thing I wanted to kind of pick your brain with is the experience of going in high school to 2 state titles. And you talked about that coach being a real person that kind of was dynamic and sparked your love of the game. What was it about him as a coach, and what were some of the things that you took away from those experiences of going to the state title game, even if you did come up short?
Right. And I want to be honest, I wasn't blessed enough to play in those games. I went to a big school. I was young. But playing for a winning team, he was always humbled, right? And I think he learned that from his father, because like I said, his father was a award-winning soccer coach, and he was never not approachable. He was always like, you could talk to him about anything, whether it was girl problems, homework problems. He was your coach. And I know mixing coach with friends is something that's like a weird combo, right? But it wasn't like he was your friend. It was more so like he was your mentor, if that makes sense, right? So he was always open to having that conversation with you to see what you needed to grow, right? And now as a coach and as a father, I totally understand his approach, because some kids need the, hey, don't be dumb, we're gonna need to work harder. Some kids need the soft white glove approach, right? You know that. And he took the time with all of us to have that conversation throughout the year, regardless, right? And obviously, we all get upset, we say things, and in the heat of the moment. But he was always a guy that was so just thought out and had such a great bedside manner when he spoke to you. Even to this day, I text him, hey, coach, right? I'm a 33-year-old man, and I still say, hey, coach. And he's still coaching there and doing great things. And I love hearing his, grabbing his ear and asking him, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm beyond blessed that he asked me those questions now. And I'm, he likes to hear what I say. So it's hilarious that it's come full circle. And a crazy thing is that a lot of us that have gone to this high school have become coaches in the Metro Detroit area. So it's absolutely bonkers. One is at a college down the street. One is at Romeo, which is right down a little bit farther away from me. One just retired because he had his first kid. There's a couple others that I'm forgetting, but it's just ironic that we all went to the same high school and we're within 5 years of each other, and we're all our coaches now. So
yeah, I don't even know if it'd be ironic. I think that's just the power of coaching. I think you've
right.
For you to still have even just when you talk about it, it's almost like you're right there in the huddle with him, and you can hear his voice, exactly how he's, and how you recognize even at that time how he dealt with some of the, whatever you want to call them, knuckleheads that needed that hard love. And then how those people that needed that, just a pat on the back or just an arm around the shoulder and say, hey, it's all right, and work through. I think you can clearly tell it made an impact on you, and it's brought you to be more aware of being a father, being a coach, just how you kind of go through each of your entire day.
Right. Yeah. And I think, I leaned on him heavily when I first started, right? I was 30 years old. I just got married. I was a kid myself at 30, right? Let's be honest. I'm leading 18-year-old kids here, with a team that hasn't had a winning season for over 10 years. Right. And so we, I talked to him a lot. Same thing. Anybody that I could talk to that had any kind of success, or even, just practiced or played some kind of, whether it was just rec, right? Hey guys, what do you think about this? Let's talk about tactics. I talked to anybody about it. And he, like I said, to this day, we text weekly about soccer. And now that the season's over, we'll talk about other stuff, but probably next year, that's what we'll be talking about. But yeah, it's crazy. We're a very close knit community here, and I'm sure you guys are too over there.
The one thing I've loved about this conversation is just the connections to, with the players, to past, teammates, because you mentioned them coaching and all that stuff. So it sounds like you're following along with their journey. They're following along with you, past coaches, all those types of things. Your wife, who's been incredibly supportive. I'm excited to see the new year come, so I can kind of see what does the future hold for Nick. If other people want to follow along and kind of see, maybe contact you more, maybe they're in the Michigan area and like, oh, this is awesome, this dude would be great to connect with. What are some great ways? So you've already shared like LinkedIn. It sounds like you're out there. So what are some easy ways for people to connect with you and kind of maybe follow up on this conversation or just see where you're headed in the future?
Yeah, Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm Coach Nick Stav on Twitter, and then LinkedIn. Just look up my name. I'm sure you'll find it. The podcast. Look for the one in Metro Detroit that looks like me. There's a couple of us. We're not related, which is ironic because my last name is so unique. But we are Islanders, and then there's mainland Greeks. Same name. Actually, my last name in Greek means crossmaker. So not like Smith in America, but very similar kind of context of being common when it comes to parts of Greece. And yeah, so just follow me, like I said, on Twitter, Instagram, same thing, Coach Nick Stav, or LinkedIn. And like I said, they can reach out and see, or if they need some help, right? So we do a lot of recruiting stuff, and I don't know if we have time to cover this or not, but
yeah, let's rock and roll.
Yeah, so we do a lot of a lot of recruiting, cool stuff with these kids that never existed at Ferndale. So when I got there, we had a very special kid my last year as an assistant coach. His name was Lee. He was my first scholarship kid, and he worked so hard on and off the ball. He was a great student. And I remember it was late in recruiting season. It was probably March when he signed. Because this was all new to me, right? Like I remember when I was a kid how it worked. You would do college tours. Nothing was online. It was, you would go for a campus tour. You would work with the assistant coaches, and then you'd work with admissions. I mean, like I said, just completely different how it is now with I guess I'm aging myself, but completely different now how you can send them video and you'll go up for an ID camp, right? Because it was completely different from when I was a kid. And so just by pure luck, I reached out to, I knew he wasn't a D1 player. I knew he was like a fringe D2 NAIA player. I reached out to a couple of teams, and, a lot of them liked him, but they already spent their budget for the year because March obviously is very, very late. It was January heading in. March is when he signed, but January is when I started this for him because, he came to me and said, Coach, I really want to play in college. And this is what kind of spurred it, right? Because I was just an assistant at the time. So we worked tirelessly. We knew what his major wanted to be. His mom and dad were fantastic. Like he, as an older kid now, because obviously he's as of drinking age, he bartended one of my baby showers at or a gender reveal party at my house. So he's become a very close part of our family. But at that time I had no idea what I was doing. Right. I looked up the NCAA rules. I looked up NAIA rules. I tried to find any school that had his major. Reached out on kids on LinkedIn, people, and I finally settled with a couple of schools. And Aquinas, again, same thing. Luke Ruff was just hired. He was a new coach. I can't remember where he came from, and he's going to kill me if he listens to this. But and I remember like it was yesterday. He called me back, and I remember I left probably 20 voicemails to coaches about his name is Lee, about Lee, and so he called me back and he goes, "Hey, I'm in Las Vegas for an ID camp. When we come back, have Lee come over." And I remember I was like, Lee, I think he was supposed to go on vacation or something. I'm like, Lee, you got to go. Like, this is it. I don't know, like nobody else. I obviously never told him like, I didn't have anything else for him at that time, which ended up not being the case. But I go, hey, like, they like your grades. They like, you guys have this very good connection on what your major wants to be. Go try it out. And so they loved him. So they ended up offering him. And that became one of our pipelines, right? So we would have same conversations with Luke that, with a college coach who is, right now turned that program around, and Lee was part of that, right? So that was 2019, and he was my first one, right? Like doing a signing day with him was so special because the school hasn't had one for a soccer player in years, maybe even decades. And after that, it was just hit the dominoes. And with the girls, we did a signing day. We did a signing day with someone, and due to COVID, it got a little weird because unfortunately, COVID hit in 2020. So if you think like going into that kind of hurt what we wanted to do. And but yeah, then after that, I had 2 more go to Aquinas for the boys, 1 go to an NCAA JUCO D1 school here in Michigan. Trying to think what else. And then this year I'm going to have 4. They haven't made up their mind yet, and I can't tell you where they're going, but we're going to have another. We're going to have another 4 signed soon. Whether it's Aquinas or somewhere else, you're going to have to follow and see. But so very proud. I mean, we put over, I think it was 8 kids into college as student athletes, right? Within 3 years, we took a program that didn't have any scholarship athletes, and we have 8, right? So we left a great legacy that will be continued hopefully by the new coach. And I totally understand the process now. I know when the rules are, I know the dead period and all those fun things, and when to bug coaches and when not to bug them, and and how budgets work. And it's been a ride, and I've just been grateful to be part of those kids' rides.
Again, it's that, like, we talked earlier, you tell the story of just how your wife kind of just pushed into supportive and supportive and supportive, and will do whatever it takes to allow you to coach. And then when I hear this young man says, hey, I'd like to play at the college level, you go and say, all right, I'm going to do everything. Like you even said, I did tirelessly. We just worked through it, and you were supporting and supporting and supporting. And it's just that it's one of the, always hear pay it forward and all those little sayings and stuff, but clearly you've surrounded yourself within just in your family makeup, and then within, as it grows from there, it's just a continuous thing. And the one thing I keep hearing a lot is, I just reached out. Like, I reached out to this coach.
All
I
it
reached
takes.
out to this. I reached out. They said, hey, I'm interested in doing this. So I reached out to that, and I think it's powerful because I think even if, like you said, some of the people never answered my voicemail, some of them never emailed me back, but I didn't stop. I kept going because it only takes one coach or one opportunity, and that could be the one that clearly has created a bond with this young man for you that's going to last the rest of your life. And then it's the same for these other, 7, 8 that have signed and gone on to be student athletes.
Right. Yeah. No, it's incredibly special. And I think, given their circumstances, like going to a small school, sub 500, 600 kids, to be able to say, hey, I have 4 kids signing for colleges is something that we're so proud of. Right. And it's not me, it's these kids working hard, and we're just lucky to be there to help bridge the gap for them and make that next step. But, it's, these kids worked hard. Their parents are fantastic. They let me take their summers away from them and push them all summer and get them where they need to be. So,
well, the cool thing too is I'm sure there's kids in the hallways walking around that thought, I'd love to go play in some sport, whatever. And now when they get to see, like, oh, kids are actually taking that and they're being successful, like they're going, they're playing, they're staying, and enjoying it. Now it kind of opens up eyes for the other, 500 plus that are maybe thinking about doing it, maybe not in soccer, but in some type of other type of thing, which is awesome.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's, these kids are inspiring. And I think that's why my wife did what she did. And to even add more to that, so my last home game before playoffs, my wife got me a shirt that the boys all signed with the year on it, and they framed it. They all signed it, and they put it in this big frame. It's over there. It's in on the other part of my office. I'd show you, but you'll probably see it. It's on Twitter, I think. But it was really special. My wife, like I said, just had a newborn. She went out of her way to have a custom shirt made for me with the number on it, with all the kids, my captains. She worked with the moms and the captains to get this thing signed for me. And, during halftime, I just sat there and wanted to bawl like a baby because, it's been a fantastic 5 years for me. And it was sad to say goodbye. And, you know, she made sure, you know, these kids and these parents were all in sync, and they made me this fantastic gift that, like I said, I look at every day, and it's like, you know, one of the reasons why, right? Like you've changed these kids' lives, and they kept this secret from you with your with your wife for weeks. And then, you know, and then in front of, you know, 50, 60 people or whatever, how many people were there, you know, they take this thing out of a box that you thought was garbage sitting in the corner, and, you know, here's a framed t-shirt or jersey that they all signed for you. So you know, it's been an amazing ride, and I'm excited for what's next, but I'm gonna never forget that town and those kids.
For sure, for sure. Nick, I've absolutely loved and enjoyed every minute of this conversation. I'm going to shut this thing down. This is Kieran, Coach's Corner Chats with Nick Stravropoulos, and I'm out. Peace.